Welcome to Solution 21 Million's Guide to Bitcoin. Over the last few minutes, we're going to break down the absolutely wild ride Bitcoin's been on for the past 5 years. And we're going to answer the one big question on everyone's mind. Is it actually getting stronger, or is it secretly on the verge of failure? I mean, let's be honest, calling Bitcoin's last 5 years a roller coaster is probably an understatement. It has seen some mind-blowing highs and some truly gut-wrenching lows. So what's the real story here? Is this thing a rocket ship, or is it a bubble just waiting to pop? Well, we're going to dig into the hard data, looking at everything from 2021 all the way to early 2026 to figure it out. So here's our game plan for today. First, we'll relive that crazy, turbulent journey. Then we'll look at all the signs that point to a stronger, more mature Bitcoin. After that, though, we got to get real and look at the signals of potential failure. And finally, we'll put it all together, weigh the evidence, and see what the data really tells us. All right, time to buckle up. We're kicking things off with a look back at the Bitcoin roller coaster. Seriously, the last 5 years have been this incredible story of extreme peaks and devastating valleys. Just take a look at this timeline. I mean, this is Bitcoin's legendary volatility in a nutshell. We start way up at the top, hitting an all-time high of over $67,000 in late 2021, but then, bam, the market turns and we see this brutal crash all the way down to about 16.5 by mid-2022. But just when you thought it was over, the spot ETFs arrive in 2024, and it was like a shot of adrenaline. We were off to the races again, smashing through to a new peak of over $126,000, which brings us to early 2026, where things have kind of stabilized. What a ride. But here's the craziest part. If you zoomed out, if you were brave enough to just hold on through all of that madness, you'd be looking at a 40% net return on your investment. That's right, plus 40%. It just goes to show, with an asset this volatile, sometimes the best move is no move at all. Okay, so now let's flip the script. Let's look at the bull case. What are the actual concrete signs that Bitcoin isn't just surviving this chaos, but is actually maturing and getting more resilient because of it? Now, this chart is a huge deal. This shows the growth of Bitcoin's hash rate. You can think of the hash rate as its digital immune system. It's what makes the network secure. And look at that growth. It's gone from around 150 exahashes to over 1,100 in just 5 years. That isn't just growth, that's an explosion. It means the Bitcoin network is more secure today than it has ever been in its entire history, bar none. And then there's this number. The launch of the spot ETFs in 2024 was nothing short of a game changer. We are talking about more than $50 billion pouring into Bitcoin from the biggest players on Wall Street. This isn't just a few people on their laptops anymore. This is a tidal wave of institutional trust. It's Wall Street planting its flag and saying, we're here, we believe in this, and that, my friends, is a very big deal. And it's not just Wall Street. Look at this list. Major corporations are putting Bitcoin on their balance sheets. Even the US government has become one of the biggest holders out there. We have an entire country, El Salvador, using it as legal tender. And on top of all that, we're finally starting to get some real regulatory clarity in the US and Europe, which just opens the floodgates for even more mainstream adoption to come. But okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves. It is not all smooth sailing. To really get the full picture, we have to be honest and look at the other side, the persistent risks and the structural challenges that could still potentially derail this entire thing. Now, this is where things get a little complicated, because the data sends some really mixed signals. So on one hand, yeah, we have record institutional money coming in. But on the other hand, we've also seen some pretty big ETF outflows recently. The network itself is fundamentally stronger than ever, but the actual on-chain activity, the number of people using it, has cooled off a bit. And that whole narrative about Bitcoin being an inflation hedge, well, that's kind of up for debate when it still moves so closely with the stock market. These are all valid concerns, for sure. But you could argue they're just short-term noise. So what's the real boogeyman? What's the biggest, scariest, long-term threat that's lurking out there on the horizon? The biggest long-term threat to Bitcoin is something that sounds like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie: quantum computing. I want you to imagine a computer so incredibly powerful that it could crack the very encryption that protects your Bitcoin wallet. It would be like a master key that could unlock every digital safe in the world all at once. That's the theoretical threat we're talking about here. But hold on, before you start panic selling, let's all take a deep breath. This is not an immediate threat. Most experts think we're still 5, 10, maybe even 15 years away from this being a real problem. And even then, as you can see here, it mostly affects older legacy-style Bitcoin addresses, only a fraction of the total supply. Plus, you better believe the smartest developers in the world are already working on quantum-resistant upgrades. So yeah, it's something to watch, but it's definitely not a reason to panic today. And of course, the list of challenges doesn't stop there. We still have to talk about scalability. Bitcoin's base layer is still pretty slow. There's the constant pressure from environmental groups about its energy use. There are also some very real concerns about a handful of big mining pools controlling a little too much of the network's power. And with all this ETF money comes a new kind of risk. A lot of Bitcoin is now sitting in the hands of a few large custodians. These are all real hurdles Bitcoin has to clear. Okay, so we've seen the good, the bad, and the kind of scary. Now it's time to put it all on the scales, weigh the evidence, and come to a verdict based on 5 years of hard data. So here it is, the final WAN. On the left side, in the strengths column, you've got a network that is more secure than ever, you've got Wall Street money fully committed, and you have clearer regulations on the horizon. But on the right side, in the risks column, you've still got that crazy volatility, you have real concerns about scalability, and you've got that long-term quantum threat looming out there in the distance. It really is the classic battle between the bull case and the bear case. So what's the verdict? Well, when you look at all the data from the last 5 years, the story it tells is one of maturation. Bitcoin is growing up. It's moving away from being just a wild speculative gamble and is becoming a legitimate institutional-grade store of value that the biggest financial players in the world are taking seriously. Yes, the risks are still very real, but the fundamental foundation, the network security, and the institutional adoption is stronger than it has ever been. Reclaim your time and future. Study Bitcoin. Hey, if you found this breakdown helpful, do us a favor and hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and of course, subscribe for more content like this. It really helps us out. And just a quick reminder, this is all for educational purposes. This does not constitute financial advice. Please always do your own research and talk to a qualified professional before making any investment decisions.